Well, welcome to the commiseration. Adam Gold, you've got Austin Deleuze, former captain of NCFC. I don't know why I always know you as the Railhawks, but I guess it was the Railhawks at one point.
Rest in
And
peace. Rest in peace.
and Jay Kumar, who I give total credit for helping to make me a smarter soccer fan. I don't know if that's worked yet, to be honest, but we're still working through the early stages. So we're going to talk some World Cup here. If anybody wants to jump in comments, that's fine. We're going to talk some World Cup. We'll try to work in some Premier League at the end. As it turns out, yesterday probably gave us a lot to talk about. So let me start off with this, Austin. We're ahead of Argentina, right?
That is, yeah. You are a glass half full guy, aren't you?
I'm an utter optimist.
We are ahead of Argentina. Man, yeah, I woke up for that one, thinking how many more chances are you going to get to see Messi play in a World Cup? And he didn't do much playing this morning, so not sure if it was worth it to wake up from that perspective. But yeah, they're hurting, man. I think back to like Spain. Was it Spain in 2006 maybe that lost their first game and went on to win the tournament? So, maybe silver lining there. I don't know.
It's tough to lose.
I'm a glass half full guy too.
Group, right? So, all right, we weren't here to spend a lot of time talking about Argentina, but it certainly was an interesting way to wake up this morning. All right, Jay, let me throw this to you, and then I want this to be a free-flowing discussion. If I told you last week that the United States and Wales would draw 1-1, which, by the way, was a pretty smart bet for me at plus 225. If I had told you that last week, would you have been okay with it? And how do you feel about it now?
Last week, yeah. I mean, I would have been fine with it. I think as long as you don't lose your first match in the group, you've got a chance to get out. And that's all we're trying to do over the next week. But watching the game yesterday, they left so much on the table. Coming out that first half, it felt like, as an Arsenal fan, it felt like last season watching Arsenal not capitalize on their possession for the 20 minutes of dominance they had. But as the game wore on, they kind of just sat back and let Wales get back into it. And when it's a 1-goal game, a mistake can decide it. And it ended up costing us in the end with a really rash challenge by Walker.
Yeah, that was, what'd you think of that challenge? I actually saw I think it was NBC Sports on Twitter said, is this a foul? I'm like, how is it not?
Yes, it's a foul.
It's interesting. I had to rewatch the game last night. I kind of missed the penalty and didn't really see it happen in real time. And so I saw like a still shot of the foul before I actually saw it happen in live action. The still shot makes it seem much, much worse than it is. I think watching it back, like, is it a foul? Absolutely. Is it like an incredibly like reckless, egregious tackle from Walker Zimmerman, which is what I'm seeing a lot of like those types of comments on Twitter? Like, I don't think so at all. I think it's more down to Bale being like, savvy, clever in the box and working his way in front of Walker when he's already sort of committed to making the challenge, than it is, a mistake on Zimmerman's part. So, I feel for him there. I think ultimately it's a mistake, but it's not one that he should be getting absolutely destroyed for, which it looks like he is,
Yeah. That's the World Cup though, right? I mean, Wando's still feeling it, which I don't think he made a mistake there either. But, the other thing though, we were watching it at the bar yesterday with some friends. And as soon as it happened, instant reaction was, oh, that's not a penalty. It's a dive. And then they showed the replay. And immediately everybody was like, yeah, it's and so I think the big thing, kind of your point, Austin, if you would have just stood him up, he didn't need to dive in there. That was the only thing he could have done. But I get why you're trying to go get the ball there.
Yeah, that for me, that was probably the bigger issue, is that you were in position.
Yeah.
Just defend. And you don't have to go get the ball. since you have to go through him anyway to get the ball, even if you're able to between his legs, kick the ball out. You don't really have to do that. Just defend, because they've done a pretty good job of defending. The only problems really into the box were balls through the air. That was a bigger issue for me. So you were pretty good at defending balls that came into the box, except unless they were airborne. But because, to be honest, Wales could have scored a couple of goals. Turner had to make one great save where he tips it over the bar. And then I forget who it was. I think it was it Kiefer? Kiefer Moore came in and a low header that just kind of curled over the top. It could have been a lot worse. It could have lost the match the way the game played out in the last 25 or 30 minutes. But I just thought that was an unnecessary challenge. And I'll go back to one in the first half when Weston McKennie picked up his yellow card. You were right on the sideline there. What's he doing? He's 40 yards from goal. Why are you picking up a yellow card there? That was just an unnecessary challenge. And I thought the two plays from a mindset were similar. You don't have to be that aggressive in that situation. Otherwise, their center backs were kind of bored for about 55, 60 minutes. I forgot Tim Ream was there for a while. I like he's jacking up the average age of the squad though.
Yeah. That's a sign of a good center back, is when you don't notice them. I think they largely played very well. As a unit, I think Serginho Dest is a guy who's in there more for his skill on the ball and his attacking prowess. And I don't think he was good on that side of the ball last night. I think he was clearly a little bit, he came into the World Cup with a knock, and I think that showed. But yeah, I think defensively they were pretty sound. The offensive side of things concerns me more, and just the total lack of quality chances created. That's concerning to me, because now we're in a situation where maybe it comes down to goal differential to get out of the group, and I don't right now see us lighting up the scoreboard at any point. But hopefully I'm wrong there.
Yeah, Austin, you kind of hit it. Go ahead.
Was Austin just talking about the Hurricanes?
Hey, they scored 3 last night. So
yeah, no, let's not talk about it. That's no, I don't want to talk about it. I watched it. It was a joke.
The other thing I'll say real quick is, Austin, you were kind of touching on it. While we're going to end up talking about the penalty, I think we got to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, and it's Christian Pulisic. And while Serginho kept giving the ball away, Pulisic stopped the ball. When the attack came to him, there were so many times he could have played way through or done, another outlet pass to keep the move flowing. And instead he just dribbled into a crowd and lost the ball. And in the second half, we set up to absorb their pressure and break on the counter because we had a lead. And against a team like Wales, that's great because they don't really want to have the ball. And then when we got it, that initial pass out was terrible every single time, whether it was Aronson, whether it was Pulisic. But in particular, I thought Christian was culpable for that.
Well, isn't that the problem for the entire program? Is that because we had the ball for a good chunk of the first 60 minutes, and we're really good box to box, between the 20s, and then we kick a lot of field goals. There's just no creativity. I think that was what was so surprising about the goal, was that the through ball was so good, and it was on time, and Weah just had to run onto it. And it's a great finish, but to me, they just don't. There isn't a lot of creativity. There's no, maybe the mistake was watching England first. So there are guys who have a feel for the game, who sit back, who don't try to press and get ahead of the defense or right at the line. Who, like the Jude Bellingham goal, he just sits back. There are other passes back. It just seems like everything is just downhill for the U.S., and that's the way it's been. And they're not even good on set pieces anymore, which they used to only score on. Now we're not even scoring on set pieces. So I think you're right in that. If it is going to come down to goal differential, unless the U.S. gets a result on Friday against England, which, I mean, I guess is possible. England has never beaten England has never beaten the United States in a World Cup.
They don't have
Yeah.
Rob Green in goal anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe can Tim Howard get rolled out? I like
Turner's been fine.
I like Matt Turner, but no,
Yeah.
they just don't. They don't. The finish is missing. They don't create the goal opportunities because I don't really recall that many opportunities that they squandered. Sargent had a header off the outside of the post. There really weren't a lot of other great chances. They had one shot on target.
Yep.
Uno,
Yeah.
and it went in. So
I think it's and I understand why Greg made the decisions he did in terms of the starting 11, and I don't necessarily fault him for it, but I think now looking back at the game and our inability to create, you've got Brendan Aronson and Gio Reyna on the bench, and Gio Reyna's fitness a little bit of a question, but I think like when you talk about who can unlock defenses and bring that creative ability, I think those are probably the first two on the list, right, that are on the roster. So I would anticipate like adjustments being made in that regard going into Friday. But like, the most concerning thing about yesterday to me, like didn't even have anything to do with the US Wales game. It had to do with how good and confident England look. And I think that's like, coming into it, it was like, maybe we can take something off England and find a way to get through that way. But man, like they were absolutely flying. And granted, Iran is not, best team in the world, but England, who historically, on paper, we know that they have the players, they have the talent, and it's always about, are they going to put it together? And they put it together yesterday. So having to play them coming out of that game is just a huge bummer in my mind.
I would say they'd be tired, but they subbed out players and brought in better players. So they brought in like two starters for Man City. I mean, I love Phil Foden. I don't know if Phil Foden wasn't a starter, but that's fine. They're not going to all start every game. Certainly not in the group stage.
Well, I think one thing about this World Cup that I think suits England is typically, World Cups are in the summer after a long, grueling English Premier League season. These guys are in like peak form right now, and they're playing in the best league in the world at peak form, and they're coming into this World Cup firing versus other countries where they're not playing in as competitive leagues, and it's not at the end of the year where they're exhausted and beat to hell after a long English Premier League season.
That's a good point. I mean, there are some guys who, because of their club seasons, aren't able to play. So England's been kind of lucky. If you're Senegal, you're thinking, man, we really wish we would have had a healthy Sadio Mane, because I thought that match was there for the taking for Senegal against Netherlands. But you don't have not only your best player, but maybe one of the 10 best players in the world right now in Mane. But yeah, I think there's pluses and minuses to all of that. I mean, a bunch of the U.S. guys came in fit. I mean, I know Berhalter said that, there was some questions about Reyna. Reyna doesn't think there are questions about Reyna. He's played in the last 5 matches for Dortmund. He started the last one and played. He only came off at halftime, the last one, and he didn't start the one before. But the 3 previous, he played 60-plus minutes in all of them. And maybe that's all he is a 60-minute guy, and that's fine. I didn't understand not using him in the second half unless it was because of a mindset. What were you looking to do? And I think both of you guys in our little text thread, both of you guys thought that the U.S. tried to win the game 1-0. And maybe Reyna's not the guy to bring in if you're trying to win 1-0. I'm not that smart. But they didn't really change anything they did. They just swapped out players. And I guess that's what I didn't understand. If you're going to try and play a different way, then why don't you change the way you play? But all they did was swap out players. And maybe that's a very basic look at what happened. So I'll let you guys tell me and tell everybody else what happened. What did they not do or do wrong?
Yeah, I think the subs are interesting. I think McKinney comes off because he's struggling for fitness. I think you could see that throughout the game. I think Musa comes off because he also looked like he was struggling from a fitness standpoint. So that's two guys right there. And when you look at who, you bring on Aronson for McKinney. So you're probably giving up a little bit on the defensive side, but you're gaining a little bit on the attacking side. And we all know what Aronson's capable of, but then you're taking off a guy like Musa, bringing on a guy like Kellen Acosta, who I love, who I think is a great player. We're not talking about the same level of quality. So, I think just in terms of our depth, and you alluded to it with England, it's like they take off Sterling, Saka, and they bring on Foden and Grealish and Rashford, and it's we're not playing in the same realm there, right? So I think the substitutions ultimately hurt us and sort of made us play a little bit more conservatively, which isn't what the game needed. I don't think we didn't want to invite pressure and try to kind of see out a 1-0 result. I would have loved to see us go get the second goal and be a little bit more ruthless. And, I think that also probably has a little bit to do with experience and youth. Everybody on the squad is playing in their first World Cup aside from DeAndre Yedlin.
Right.
Yeah. And it looked like it in the last 20 minutes, right? So it's a combination of a few things, but the depth for me is what really, I think, hurts us in moments like that.
Yeah, I think Austin kind of hit the nail on the head there at the subs. They failed to impress when they came on, and I think taking off McKinney and Musa, you lose a lot of control in the midfield there. So the players you brought on, Aronson, you're adding him to help be part of that break. And so if you kind of think about 5 ahead of the ball, 5 behind the ball, we took off some of our 5 behind the ball and put more people ahead of the ball, players, which in theory, when you're trying to defend and counter, makes sense, except there was nobody to get them the ball with enough space to actually do something with it. And when they did, outside of the goal, we never made the pass. I think I saw some screenshots this morning of just Weah completely in behind where we just refused to pass the ball, and it was both Aronson and Pulisic.
Yeah, it wasn't. Didn't think it was a particularly great performance from the Americans that we watch in the Premier League. Aronson has been better for Leeds. Pulisic, well, you could argue that he doesn't really play in the Premier League, judging by the way he's been used at Chelsea. I hope that changes for him. But I think, Austin, you and I talked about this actually on the terrestrial radio yesterday, in that the Adams captaincy frees up Berhalter to not have to start, not feel compelled to start Pulisic. And maybe he'll be better coming in with a burst of energy in the last, at the 65-minute mark. And he comes in for whoever they decide. Maybe he comes in for Reina. Maybe Reina starts, and then Pulisic is the sub for him, where he can come in. And if you have, and we've had double-digit added times in most matches, it seems. So, and maybe that becomes a 30 to 35-minute stint if he comes in. 35 minutes. If he comes in at the 65-minute mark. So maybe that is actually a good idea. I don't know, but what about? It seems like he's Berhalter's afraid to change his formation. If you're going to try and win the game 1-0, which is fine. Games are won that way all the time. Then why not bring on more defending centric players? Why not play 3 center backs and still keep Jedi and Yedlin on the field? Just be more, because I know you guys, Jay, you said he parked the bus. Well, park a bigger bus, right? Don't park a VW bus. Get a giant Madden cruiser and sit that sucker in front of the goal. If that's what you're going to do, again, I run the risk of being too basic about this. So is that crazy?
I don't think it's crazy at all. I think the second half was so unclear to me what the intention was, that I'm not sure. Maybe the intention was to counter and try to go get that second goal that way. But it ended up looking like we were sitting in and trying to see the game out 1-0. So I think it's hard to know what the intention was in Greg's head. And, if the intention was to go see it out 1-0, then you're right. I think it would have made sense to throw in an extra center back and to kind of bunker in that way. But it wasn't clear. I think the decision making went downhill, and so I think it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world.
No, and I think the other piece, Austin, you said something there that was what I've been trying to figure out how to say. Is I think if we're watching it and we're unclear what they're trying to do, then the players didn't get the direction they needed to go do what they needed to do. At the 50-minute mark, there was on the broadcast, the sideline reporter or whomever was like saying how Greg told them at halftime that they want to absorb and then go expand and catch them on the counter. And that was the plan for the second half. And yet we're here debating, were they parking the bus or were they trying to counter? And so if we don't know, that's not good.
I think the natural tendency, though, is to try to protect, right? You have an opportunity to win. I think the natural tendency is to not try to extend yourself and leave yourself exposed. And they didn't do that. There might have been an occasion or two where, holy cow, why is there only two guys back and here comes Wales? Everything came in through the air until the penalty. And then it was just desperately trying to get one out. But I'm glad Jordan Morris came on. Whatever. My fault. I mean, he's a great player. He's been around a long time. And he's overcome a lot of injuries, but I just didn't understand what Jordan Morris was doing. All right. I do want to leave some time for the Premier League here, and we only have a couple more minutes left. But let me ask one thing. Who that started against Wales wouldn't you start against, given good fitness, Austin, who would you take out? Who would you put in for England on Friday?
It's a really difficult question. I think I don't envy Greg. I think it's an incredibly difficult decision because in my mind, based on what we saw, you do need to get Reyna and Aronson on the field, which means you probably need to play without a true striker. So Sargent probably sits.
Okay.
But Sargent played well, and I think his hold up play was important. His work rate was important. His hold up play led to the only goal we scored. And I think Weah gives you something that none of the other options really have in terms of his ability to get in behind, and just his movement really caused so many problems. So then it's like, okay, who's the next guy? It's Pulisic, right? Yeah. And I think benching him is a big decision because not only from the external perception of the team, but in terms of what that does to his mindset and what it does to his relationship to the rest of the team for the rest of the tournament. I have no idea. That's the stuff we'll never know. We don't know how that happens behind the scenes. So I just said a lot to say, basically, I have no idea. And that's why, that's why they don't pay me to coach.
You can do radio then. Jay, who's in, who's out?
So again, you keep getting me to go after Austin, but
you can jump in anytime you want.
No, but you said it earlier. I think it's Dest. With the way England attack, his defensive liability there, it's like playing Trent Alexander-Arnold. But a lesser version. And so I take him out. Yedlin's fine, but I probably go for Shaq Moore to start.
Okay.
Joe Scally, maybe a Scally sighting.
Yeah. But as much as he was losing the ball too much in this game to warrant inclusion in the next one, given that's what he's there for. And with the way England attack, we have to make sure we go with our 4 best defenders. However we want to set them out there, but that back 4 has to be the best 4 defenders we have.
As we transition, I agree. The only guy, if he's fit, Reyna has to start, and I don't care where in place of Pulisic is fine, and I think Christian's going to have to be an adult about it and understand that he's come off the bench before, and he can come off the bench and be effective in 35 minutes or whatever. But I think Reyna's got to be on the field. As we transition to the Premier League for the last few minutes here, let's just all agree that it was a good day for Fulham. Anthony Robinson played really well. Tim Ream played really well. Kiefer Moore played impacted the game when he came on. So they're pretty excited, I think, at Craven Cottage. So to the Premier League.
Hey, Adam, before we go, I just want to say one last thing. I think as much as the games have been great, we're having to watch it on Fox.
Oh, you're right.
And it's disappointing, and it's hard to separate the realities of what's going on that caused this World Cup to happen with
not for Fox.
How great the sport is. And so if we're doing this, I think it's only fair that we recognize that this is taking place in Qatar, and it sucks that it's taking place in Qatar, and it feels like a collection of games rather than that spectacle it usually is.
Mm-hmm.
And Fox is doing us no favors by essentially doing state-run propaganda while they're calling the games.
I've got a solution for you there, Jay.
Telemundo?
Stream it in Peacock. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I have Peacock. I can do that. I can do that. Yeah, look.
No Alexi.
Fox is wholly owned right now by Qatar. And FIFA's no help. FIFA basically made it impossible for the 9 European nations to wear the armband, the One Love armband. So they had to scrap that. Excuse me. I don't want to hear from anybody. And also FIFA told Belgium to take the love decal off the inside of their jerseys. Is somebody going to inspect them when they go on the field? What the hell? So FIFA's culpable in this, and FIFA's president, Infantino, with his press conference, basically trying to, go whataboutism on all of Europe. Aces, man, aces. FIFA took the money, and Sepp Blatter can go scratch for his. It was a mistake. No kidding. Whose mistake was it? You guys got paid very handsomely to give it to Qatar, and this is a nation that doesn't even have enough hotel rooms for fans. They're giving out tents. They're letting people sleep outside. I mean, why is it even? It shouldn't be in Qatar. Fox is exactly what we expected Fox to be. I heard an interview with Rob Stone on Sirius XM, and he was praising Qatar. And I'm like, we're not going to talk about that. I'm like, you know what? You guys are the worst. Worst. The BBC is probably covering this better. I've seen some clips of the BBC covering it. But, I mean, we expected the BBC to cover it better. So it is shameful.
My girl Alex Scott with the armband, though, for the BBC. So, which is great.
Absolutely.
England Arsenal captain, former.
Oh, really? Did not know that. Mm-hmm. See, I'm learning more. You're making me a smarter soccer fan already, Jay. All right. Jay, can Arsenal win the Prem, my man?
Can they? Yeah, I mean, if you're 5 points clear at Christmas, you can.
That was the question.
Will they? Probably not, because they're going up against a literal nation state.
They are.
So, like, if City decide in January, they're like, oh, we're going to drop $200 million, they can do it. And there's just nothing anyone can do to stop them. They've got the best striker in the world, the best manager in the world, the most money in the world. Like, we shouldn't win, but if we keep playing the way we are, there's no reason why we can't.
They can't pay everybody. There's only 11 spots, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I know where they can upgrade.
Yeah.
They can upgrade at center back. To me, that's the weakness of Man City. Maybe even on the outside, but for the most part, at center back, I think they can upgrade. Austin, can Arsenal win the league?
No, I don't.
Man,
I love watching them. I love Arteta. But no, the season's too long. Man City's too deep. I think Liverpool is going to be there or thereabouts when it's all said and done.
Wait, where is thereabouts?
I think they'll finish top 4.
Oh, I think they'll finish top 4 too, but I think there's going to be an enormous gap, like it was last year between Chelsea and Liverpool and City.
I don't think the gap will be that big. I think they're gonna put some heat on City and Arsenal. So yeah, I think would I like to see Arsenal do it? Sure, I think it'd be great, but I think unfortunately the depth isn't quite there. I think a couple injuries and it's a totally different team, and that's just not the case for City. So hate to be a dream crusher.
No,
I mean,
look,
it's going to take luck, and you're being real. But if we look at Liverpool, the year they won the title, their starters played 35 of 38 games. So you've got to get Salah played all 38. Virgil van Dijk played 36, and so you're absolutely right. 1 or 2 injuries, and we're done. Like, I mean, the depth is paper thin. We're as deep as a crepe, but doesn't mean we can't stay fit.
Right. See, that's the thing. Injuries are probably going to happen, but it also depends on where they happen.
Yeah.
Like, Arsenal's probably okay to deal with an injury up front, right? They've got some guys they can bring on up front or in the midfield. I think the one place they cannot afford an injury is at center back, where it's been all Gabriel and Saliba, and those guys were amazing. If I were Arsenal, that's where I would reinforce. I would try to find somebody I could use to either, give these guys a break here and there, especially with Europa games in the middle of the week. That's where I would look to reinforce. I think 2 things about Arsenal's chances to win the league, and I think they have a chance to do it. Like, if I had to bet, I would say probably City, because I think they'll probably do very similarly what they did in the first half of the season. Not the first half, the first 15 matches. But Arsenal has to go to everybody in the top 6 other than Man U. They had all of those matches except for the City match, which they got canceled. And
Chelsea was away.
Right. Well, but it got canceled, so they still have to go to City.
Right.
They have to go to City. They have to go to Liverpool. They have to go to Newcastle. They play Newcastle twice. So the schedule the fixtures are a little bit against them.
Yeah.
But I think if they can get 3 points from City, and they can beat City, they can beat them. If they can get 3 points and just split those points, I think they're finishing first.
I still don't.
That's I'm Mr. Optimistic, Jay.
I'm the Arsenal fan.
I know, but you're supposed to be pessimistic. I know Arsenal fans. You're all pessimistic.
It's fair. But I would say the other thing I'd say is, honestly, what's interesting is at center back, I think we have some depth. Because Ben White can play center back.
Okay.
Tomiyasu is the starting center back for Japan. We just play them at right back. So I think we actually have depth there. It's in the midfield. I mean, our midfield, you look past the 3 starters, there's not a good replacement there for our holding midfielder. There's not really a great left 8 replacement for Xhaka, who has somehow found new life. Like, I didn't know he was an attacking midfielder, at 30. And then we need some help for Saka on right wing so that he can take some games off. So really, it's the top half of the pitch that worries me a little bit more than the back
really?
half. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just see you guys scoring tons of goals. So
It's the same guys.
well, I guess it is. Who's was it Reece Nelson?
Yeah.
Where did he come from? What is that?
He had a good game, but he's still. I think he will need to upgrade on him.
All right, who finishes in the top 4? It's City and Arsenal, I'm assuming, for everybody. Who fills out the top 4, Austin?
Liverpool and Spurs. I think I'm gonna go with those two. I think I would love to see Newcastle stay in the conversation. But yeah. Not from that perspective, but I think Miguel Almiron, watching Almiron over the last month has just been so fun, and I hope that he can continue his form and that they kind of make things interesting and bring a little bit of a different look to that top 6 to 8 range. But yeah, I think Spurs and Liverpool are going to round out the top 4.
Okay, top 4.
So obviously, a top 2, I think will make it in, and then I'm going to go on a limb here. I think at Liverpool and United, I think kicking Ronaldo out is it's addition by subtraction there.
Galvanize the team.
It really will. And it pains me, but I think Ten Hag's a good manager. Like, I think he did a nice job at Ajax. And I think if they listen to him, which who knows, it's United, but they're only like 3 points behind Spurs right now. And so I think they'll nip in.
Man U, Liverpool, and Chelsea all have a match in hand. If Graham Potter can get those guys together, Chelsea's got players. But I don't know that that's going to work this year. I'd give them a better chance next year. I don't know why I'm optimistic about the second half of the year for Liverpool, but I am. I think Liverpool will get in, and I think Newcastle stays. I think Newcastle they are unbelievably fun to watch. As much fun as I have had watching Arsenal this year, I have had that much fun watching Newcastle. I've had no fun watching Liverpool at all, but I have had a blast watching Newcastle. And they've done all this without Saint-Maximin. I don't know if he adds anything when he comes back. If he comes back, I have no idea what his injury is. I just know he's gone. But they have done all of this without him. They could also add if they want, but they have not done that. They've been pretty just building kind of slowly. And yeah, Almiron is just super fun to watch. And I know Atlanta United's probably pretty excited about that. All right, finally, who goes down? Yeah, who goes down?
Let's see. I think Forest is going down. Southampton and Bournemouth.
Okay, I have 2 of those. Austin, who's going down?
Yeah, I think like the boring answer is probably Wolves, Forest, Bournemouth. Southampton will be right there. And we talked about this the other day, but just for the sake of spicing things up, I think Leeds is in very serious trouble with the number of goals that they give up. And the way that they play, it's not like a sustainable way to play, as fun as it is to watch. So I think I'm going to put Leeds in there.
All right, I think Leeds stays up. I think that goes 2 ways. I think they can win some games. They might not otherwise win, and which they did at Liverpool, but that was probably as much on Liverpool as it was on Leeds, although they attacked the whole game. Wolves can't score. They're going down. My wife became a Wolves fan because of Robert Plant's a big Wolves fan, but they're going down. Forest and Bournemouth cannot keep the ball out of their own net, so I don't see how they're staying. Southampton gave up 9 to Liverpool, like in the 3rd match or 4th match. They're not as bad defensively, and I think they have a little bit more scoring, but I think Wolves, Forest, and Bournemouth go down. I would have said Leicester in a minute until the last month. They have played really, really well. So I thought they were all mailing it in. I thought they were all going to leave, and I thought Brendan Rodgers didn't like his team, and I actually think they're sneaky good to get near the top. Maybe into the top 12, if that matters. I don't know that matters, but I think they're going to be well off the line. So. Anything else to report before we say goodbye? Do you have an armband? I know all of that talk probably bugs you. It bugs me too.
Yeah.
But with everything you've been involved in, Austin, that probably hits even worse.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's frustrating to see because, like, I think at this point now they're almost like, by saying that they can't wear them, they're almost injecting more meaning into it, and like it's just the entire situation is just really disappointing that we are where we are. But I hope that some players continue to take a stand where they can and where they feel comfortable, and other than that, I guess we just gotta try to enjoy it and acknowledge that there are things that are bigger than the game and more important than the game, and try to keep that close to the front of the conversation. So
money is more important than the game, Austin. FIFA tells us that every day.
Well,
I
think
the checks are in the bank. So
what the German FA did, I think, is something that hopefully U.S. soccer can learn from and look at. They abstained from voting for Infantino, even though he ran unopposed, and then they've called for FIFA publicly to set aside the same amount of money that the winning team got, $440 million prize money, to migrant workers and human rights issues in Qatar. And so if more federations can pressure FIFA to do that, I think it's at least it's not enough, but it's a good step.
Yeah, it's all sad. Austin Deleuze, Jay Kumar, me. Thanks, man. Guys, I enjoyed this. It was a breezy 42 minutes.
There we go.
Let's do it again.
Okay. All right. We just got to carve out 42 minutes. We can do that. All right, brothers.
All right. Take care,
guys.